A tension convention between homeless advocates and the city of Providence right now.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to My State of Mind. I am Dan York. This is Friday evening as you watch the broadcast, but dirty little secret, don't tell anybody. On Fridays, we record our program on Thursday afternoons after our Thursday shows. So we work 4 days a week for 5 programs. And I don't bring that up all the time, but one of the reasons I do is that if you were watching yesterday, you know that we spent the entire broadcast talking about the passing of longtime Providence Mayor Buddy Cianci. And I would imagine by the time you're watching this show on Friday that some news has come out about arrangements and all sorts of other things which we would normally have reflected on here. So when we regroup on Monday, we'll certainly be discussing that, pre or post. I just didn't want you to think that we had, forgotten that conversation in just one day. All right? Does that make sense to you? Hope it does. The nice thing about Fridays that we record on Thursdays is that we get a chance to eliminate the rundown where I opine on all sorts of things. And really kind of expand the conversation. And I'm really intrigued by this thing going on in the city of Providence where homeless advocates are more or less saying, hey, what up with the way the homeless are treated? Here is one of the headlines that grabs my attention. Providence police targeting the homeless, the group contends. Another one, same kind of version, discusses the same thing. And here's a WPRI news story that helps set the foundation for the conversation.
Homeless advocate groups are accusing the Providence Police Department of what they call a disturbing pattern of discrimination.
I was horrified by the experiences of degradation, humiliation, and what appeared to be blatant profiling.
Inside City Hall, there was a call to action for the city to do more to support the homeless. At the rally, a new survey was presented compiled by Providence College. They say their numbers show an overwhelming percentage of homeless people claiming to have been cited or arrested for public nuisance crimes.
95% of the people who were cited for these activities were homeless or formerly homeless.
The Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless says the city has to reinstate the Providence External Review Authority. The now disbanded group was created to have civilian oversight of the police. In response, the mayor's office says they are committed to working with their community partners to address the issues the homeless are facing. They tell us the Providence police chief has been notified and directed his officers not to target the homeless.
They are some of the most brilliant and resilient neighbors that we have, and they deserve to be treated with kindness, dignity, and respect.
And we reached out to the Providence Police Union president. He says his officers don't target anyone, telling us they're just enforcing city ordinances and state law. He also went on to tell us he would like to review some of the data from the survey, saying he already has questions.
Jim Ryczek is the executive director of the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, friend of the program, known him for quite some time. Jim, how are you?
I'm good.
The take on this is it's an uncomfortable allegation.
Mm-hmm.
What, in essence, is the allegation?
So we have a law. The Homeless Bill of Rights was passed in 2011, which makes it illegal for people to discriminate against people because of their homeless status, including, and it assures equal protections for people from municipal officials, under which the police fall. In the summer, late spring, early summer, a group came together to start talking about some of the reports that were coming from outreach workers and homeless people themselves about their treatment by the police. In the late summer, the mayor was contacted and some evidence was produced to show him, let him hear some of the things that were happening. Eyewitness accounts, people who've experienced personally these treatments by police officials.
Like
Kate and others. Like what were targeting for harassment being just standing on a sidewalk. We have numerous accounts of outreach workers and case managers going out to do work with people and just standing on a sidewalk or at a bus stop being told that they can't be there and they need to move. Those types of things where, I or the outreach worker or the psychiatrist in one example was not required to move, just the homeless person. So if that's not profiling and singling somebody out, I don't know what is. The fact is that a meeting was held with the mayor on September 11th in which he agreed to make a public statement that these were unacceptable types of behaviors, that discrimination and criminalizing homeless people this way was not acceptable. We communicated, very numerous people communicated with the state, with the city over the next 4 months. We have 8 documented times when we asked where the statement was and what they were doing to stop this. Meanwhile, we kept accumulating all the evidence of people being mistreated, and recently asked the mayor to again reissue the statement that he promised to make, but more importantly, then outline any steps that could be taken, and we gave him some ideas that we could work with him on.
Did he acknowledge it?
He acknowledged it in the September 11th meeting.
Saying, I know it exists?
Like I said, our understanding is he acknowledged it in the September 11th meeting.
Okay.
Were you in the meeting? I was not at the meeting, but Kate and others were at the meeting.
Kate was coming up.
Yeah.
Good. So she can tell us about
exactly.
the meeting. So after that, and as part of this multi-month discussion going on, Providence College commissioned a survey, and did a couple of days in the park, so to speak,
right.
Kennedy Plaza, Burnside Park, and ended up, as the process goes, and I spoke with the professor. There you go. It's called the Public Spaces Survey. I spoke with the professor, and he indicated to me that they spoke to 1 of every 3 people, no matter what they looked like. In other words, how they were dressed, whatever, and came up with this idea that, or this data, that says just over half of the people that were in the park were homeless or formerly homeless, as I recall, and that 94 and 95% of the citations and/or arrests that have been made were from that population of homeless.
Right.
When I pressed him, to me, it feels more like data than it does research, because the responses come on the hearsay or the story told of the person who feels like they've been afflicted, and it also goes back to, has it ever happened to you versus has it happened to you recently in the last year, and then the numbers come down about 1 out of 5. I'm not saying that diminishes the legitimacy of the claim, but we need to kind of put that in perspective. Has that data been shared with the mayor's office?
Yes, I believe so. It's been sent to the mayor. So, and we're meeting with him tomorrow, so we'll go over it again.
Because that data would be, well, you're meeting with him actually today.
Today,
because
right.
But if I'm the sitting mayor and I see this data, I go, all right, enough of this. Enough of this. Okay, enough of this. We got to figure out. And I'm not indicting the police department, but there's a communication problem somewhere along the line, seems to me, correct?
Yeah, I mean, leadership is all about taking some action when citizens bring a problem to you. And one of the questions we have to the mayor is, how is he viewing the citizens who reside in his city who are homeless, who are talking about this treatment by the police force? And to go back to the law, these are the mayor and the police force are supposed to be upholding the law. They're sworn to do that. This is the law. You can't single out a homeless person for any mistreatment because of their homeless status.
Right, hold that thought, because I want to talk to you about, I want you to understand what we're actually talking about, and we'll bring on one of the outreach workers who can kind of break it down for you. Don't go anywhere. It's an important conversation.
I could go on for a long time about some of the things that happen to me on the street, from simple things like being screamed at in the library by security guards because I closed my eyes, being sprayed by a fire hydrant water hose by those yellow jacket clean team, safety team, people, being beat up and arrested for sitting down.
That is Eileen Borman, who I guess is status defined as a homeless person?
Formally.
Yes,
yeah, she's
formally.
housed now.
Her experience, which is kind of horrifying. Kate has joined the program. She's an outreach worker with the House of Hope. Tell me about the House of Hope real quick. By the way, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
House of Hope does what?
We offer a pretty wide array of housing services. I'm an outreach worker and case manager, focusing on chronic homelessness but we also run the largest men's shelter in the state, called the Overflow, Harrington Hall. We
Right.
also run some First Step houses and some permanent supportive housing.
You've seen firsthand some of the allegations that have been made by your group against the city of Providence and specifically the police?
I have.
Examples?
I actually have a few recorded. If we might be able to share that with you sometime on audio and video. So one example might be walking, doing outreach on the street, south side, downtown, or downtown rather, and standing talking to a client about housing, maybe medical, maybe whatever it is they need. And an officer might roll up in their vehicle. Sometimes they get out, sometimes they don't, of the vehicle, and sometimes they'll beep them off, boop, boop. And they know from experience, the clients know that that means get out of here, start walking. Sometimes it means cross the street because I don't want you in my district. But personally, I have experienced officers riding up on bikes saying, before they even say anything, the client will start to leave. I actually protested this a little bit once, and I said, well, where are you going? And started having a conversation with the officers about why he had to leave, because I had been there and seen that he had done nothing wrong. We were talking about him getting an apartment the following week. And they told me that they knew him and that they knew what he was doing here, maybe panhandling, which is also not illegal. And I said, but I've been here for about a half an hour, and we were just talking. He wasn't doing anything. And they said, no, we know him, and we know what he's doing. And that was basically the end all of the conversation. So it was pretty disturbing.
Yeah, listen, I admire the work that you do, and it's got to be. And I can almost feel you on that side of the television, almost beginning to say, okay, here comes Dan siding with the bleeding heart liberals, you know. Here we go. Here comes his guilty conscience. The old Irish Catholic guilt starting to come in here right away. But you work every day in a field that you love, that you believe in, that you have passion for, and you have relationships with these people. They're human beings. In God's eyes, they're as important as anybody else. And you feel like they're getting roughed up. Right?
That's correct.
Identifying homeless people in a community is an important thing. Seeing homeless people in a community is an uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, for some people, sure.
Well, it should be. I think it should be uncomfortable for everybody. I mean, if you weren't discomforted by it, you wouldn't be trying to fix the problem, right?
I'm discomforted by the problem, not by the people.
Right.
Is the difference.
Okay, point taken. 2-point bucket for you.
Not three?
I'll accept 2. I'll accept the clarification.
Yeah.
It's a marketing problem. It's a blight issue. It's an embarrassment to a city. It's a city on the move that wants cranes in the sky. Don't need a lot of people hanging around down city.
Sure.
Same people looking the same way, hanging the zone,
Sure.
and maybe even doing some panhandling. And we'll talk about the nature of that. Business owners say, "Come on, man," to the cops a lot. Like, can you help me move the situation along? So there's a place in between those two dynamics where there's got to be a solution.
Sure. So one thing is, you heard Kate say the gentleman that she was talking to was getting an apartment the next week. That's because of her good work, and she's doing her work in her office, which is on the street. That's where the people are. So we have a lot of success getting people off the street. Fortunately, right now, there's just about 1-for-1 replacement, and we're working on that. One of the things we were asking the city, and we've been asking the city since last summer, was let's get a day center funded, opened, working. If you don't want people on the street in Kennedy Plaza, let's give them a place to go to where we can have kind of a homeless service model where everyone is welcome to come, find people, have them have respite, let them get services.
Got a budget for it? Got a place where you want to find the dough?
We can go to the city for community development block grant money. There's state money. There's money out there. If people want to solve a problem, we can find the money to do it. The service provision is going to be donated pretty much by all the service providers who have contracts with the state to do this kind of work. We can figure that out. That's not a heavy lift to figure it out. barrier right now is the lack of communication and acknowledgement that a problem exists that we need to come together to fund. We at the Coalition for the Homeless seek collaborative and cooperative solutions to homelessness. We're not interested in having people sue the city if we don't have to have plaintiffs sue the city.
You got that. Kate, when you're dealing with this situation and you refer to, and other advocates refer to, daily life activity, standing, sitting, laying down, eating, smoking is even in the list of things that you guys put together, and then the panhandling. I'm like, yeah, they ought to be able to stand, sit, unless there's a loitering sign there for express reason, and that ought to be good for me or anybody else.
Right.
The panhandling part, you're not going to win the public sentiment on that too very much.
Sure, and that's why we have the Constitution
Of the United States of America?
That's correct. So.
Oh, you're going to go throw that at me, are you?
But
There's
Cranston,
a Supreme Court decision about
Yeah.
panhandling. It's free speech.
Right. The ability, see, if we're walking down the street at Bernstein Park and I say, hey, Jimmy, you got $10 because I forgot my wallet and it's perfectly legal.
Yes.
If someone who's dressed a little tattered and who may do it on a more regular basis does so, people think it's illegal, but it's not.
No.
It just rubs everybody such the wrong way, correct?
Yeah, that's been my experience.
Right.
Sure.
But what do you want to tell people about that?
So we don't mind when firefighters do it. We don't mind when cheerleaders do it, the Pee Wee football. But when somebody only has $700 a month, maybe they've been disabled for a long time, and it's the 4th week of the month, and they're not sure where or how they're going to eat dinner, that's what they turn to. And if the firefighters can do it for muscular dystrophy or whatever cause, I would hope that the public would see that having a way to get dinner for that night would be a good cause. But either way, like Jim said, it is a First Amendment right, and as long as they're not making a disturbance, banging on windows, which I have yet to see. I mean, I would think that people wouldn't mind that.
I'm guessing that some of the political thought might be if the police let up, it will promote more standing, sitting, loitering, panhandling behavior.
Yeah, we'd have to hear from the police department about what their concerns are about the current behavior being absent. And I would hope that let up means that they're cooperating with us to identify where people are. If there's a day center, instead of asking somebody to move on, giving somebody a lift over to the day center if they need to get some services, to be an ally with us instead of a barrier to getting those services. Look, I understand the job the police have, and I think they have a very hard job. And if a homeless person is breaking the law, they should arrest them. But these are things that homeless people are doing that are not only against the law, but are protected by state law. And they're sworn to uphold that law. And so we're going to require that they start doing that.
And there are a lot of you on your side of the television who are saying, yeah, but they like living that way, and they're living it. So when we come back, we'll address that. Stay with us. Again, some of the attendees at a rally at City Hall, kind of a presentation really about this Rhode Island Public Spaces survey from Providence College in coordination with homeless advocates here. And of course, you don't advocate for homelessness. You advocate for the end of homelessness. And we can talk about that cycle all the time. Jesus said there will always be the poor. But we got to do a better job with this kind of stuff. And it seems to me that there's a lot of communication that has to be made still, even in 2016, about homelessness.
Right.
And I'm sure that there are people on the other side of the TV who are going, come on, man, Dan, just stick them with the questions. These people are on drugs. These people like it. They're lazy. They're milking the system, all that kind of stuff. You're dealing with these people every day. And you say what to that?
I say, at least from my experience, that I have yet to meet a person who chooses to be homeless. most of the people, I don't know about most, but many of the people I meet have had jobs, full-time jobs, maybe have had a physical disability. And I do hear quite often that substance use, if it does occur, sometimes happens afterward, after they become homeless because of the trauma that they incur by living outside or living in a shelter. But I think we see the people who are visible to us. Sure, maybe there's some behavioral health stuff going on that that needs to be addressed as well.
It's funny you say that, because on the radio the other day when we were talking about this, I said, you got to be crazy to want to be homeless.
Right.
And people are like, what do you mean? I said, first of all, nobody's born with the goal to be homeless. And if they're choosing to be homeless, there's something not correct. There's a mental health issue. There's an addiction issue. There's something that's making them make a poor decision about the purposefulness of their homelessness status.
Right.
All of which can be helped.
Right.
Correct?
You know, the work that Kate does is really God's work. I mean, the solution to homelessness, number one, is taking away the judgment and starting to create a relationship with the person. When people say folks choose to be homeless, it's because they have their guard up, and justifiably so. They have been treated poorly by the social service system. They've been told that they don't matter, that they are not making the right decisions, that they, all sorts of things. And so, number one, in getting that next person housed, and the work that Kate and her colleagues do, is just saying, I accept you as you are. Let's talk about your life.
You know, Joe, as you're talking about this, I don't know how to ask this question or make this request in any other way that doesn't sound gratuitous. But you got to bring some of your case clients here. You've got to encourage them. I know it's difficult because they want their privacy and they don't need to be exposed. And there's a whole, but maybe some do and maybe some don't. And I'd like to see some faces and have some conversations with people who happen to be classified as homeless. Because I think once you find out, A, how smart a lot of these people are, and how educated a lot of these people are, and how insightful they are, and how philosophical they are, and all those kinds of things. Because guess what? You learn some things from the street now, don't you? That's a perspective on the world that can be very different, right? You're out there every day working it.
These are some of the most amazing and intelligent, brilliant people I've met. The depth of the experience, and like you said, the education that they bring to that experience, it's two worlds colliding. So you take the rich life that they had before, not rich money, but rich, you know, we've all had, you know, experiences, and then bringing it to the street. The problem I see, well, not the problem, but the barrier to bringing people forward into the public eye, I think, is a fear that they will be judged, a fear in this case that there might be retaliation. I have enormous respect for Eileen for standing up.
Well, you know, unfortunately, sometimes you got to market yourselves in a different way in order to be able to be better understood. So we'll see if we can get that done. Check back with us, and we'll check back with you based on your success, hopefully with the mayor's office, and hopefully the police, who I don't see as necessarily bad guys here, will get a better understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Absolutely.
Good work. We'll stay in touch on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. I hope the city of Providence kind of gets together with these folks. You know what? 'Cause they make a lot of sense. And you know what? You'll have a better city if everybody understands the homeless issue a little bit better. The issue that I don't understand is the struct hole thing, and we'll be back to it on Monday. The House Speaker thinks he's got all the answers. And by the way, that whole notion of a constitutional convention or an amendment or a all referendum to protect the cars, it ain't in there. We'll see you. Have a good weekend.